Hi, Nick here from Best Body Health Coach. So in this video I'd like to talk to you about dairy and why we restrict it on our 2-month health program. Okay, so firstly let me get into what kind of dairy we're all exposed to commercially in the chain stores, in the shops and so on. And you'll see why then we restrict it quite a bit on our program. So the worst kinds of dairy that you can have, and these will not only restrict weight loss or stall weight loss, but they will actually cause weight gain. And the reason for that is they are endocrine disruptors, and that means they mess with your endocrine system, and as a result produce fat burning blocker hormones. Okay, cool. So the worst kinds of dairy. So you get grain-fed dairy. So you get cows out in the field. Actually, they're not out in the field. They're normally in pens, and they're basically fed a grain which is 99% of the time a GMO grain. All right. So that's a genetically modified organism type of grain, not meant for any kind of human or organic consumption. So any organism shouldn't really be consuming this stuff because it's grown with toxins in it, usually to prevent pests like bugs and mice from getting into it, and also funguses growing on the grains and so on. Okay, so anything that's grain fed, even if the grain that they are getting is non-GMO. Cattle are not supposed to eat grains. They're supposed to be out in the pasture eating their grass. Alright, then commercial milk. It's also basically coming from huge dairy farms. You've got to think with it now. You've got these dairy farmers who are trying to make as much profit as they possibly can. They're trying to make as much yield out of their cattle that they have in their pens. So they're going to feed these cattle as much as they can that is going to increase their milk production and also their meat production, for that matter, if it's a meat farm. Alright, so commercial milk is full of all sorts of stuff, which I'll get to a little bit down the list. Processed cheese basically comes from commercial milk, which is full of all sorts of hormones, usually GMOs, and it has other stuff that's been added to it, obviously to make cheese faster than the old traditional way of maturing cheese. Anything that's GMO. So most of the stuff out there in most countries in the world are farm GMO. I know in South Africa it is almost impossible, if not impossible, to find any kind of grain or wheat that is GMO free. Unless some guy's just growing a house around his little kraal or whatever it is, a little house, you won't find non-GMO. Then you've got RBST, which is a protein hormone, increases the production of milk. So basically, you've got these cattle all in their pens and they have these huge udders, and they're just getting milk like day in and day out, and just producing more and more and more and more milk for us to drink. Now, if you think about how they get this to happen, is to get these things to grow with a growth hormone. They get them to grow their endocrine system to a point where they are just continually basically producing milk. Obviously, they give these cattle a bit of a rest in between, but they get as much as they possibly can out of these cattle. Alright, casein in milk. It doesn't matter what kind of milk it is. Casein is something that most people are allergic to. It doesn't really agree with the human body. So it causes bloating, it causes all sorts of problems with the human body. A lot of people are lactose intolerant. So basically lactose creates mucus in the body, which means the body doesn't agree with the body. So the body's trying to get rid of it, and that's why the glands start filtering the stuff out of your system, and it causes mucus. I find that if I somehow consume anything like this, which I try to stay away as much as I possibly can. But when I do, I find within an hour, I have a blocked nose, I've got a croaky voice, and generally not feeling great. All right, so the other thing is these things are also full of different kinds of estrogen. So, and IGF, which is a growth hormone. So they're trying to, like I said earlier, like get as much yield out of these cattle as possible. And this estrogen is a massive endocrine disruptor for human beings when they consume this stuff. So if you're a male, you'll start getting like moobs, what they call man moobs, and all sorts of other things start to happen in a male's body when he has too much estrogen. It targets prostate. So if you're someone who has a prostate problem, an enlarged prostate, just stay away from dairy. There's a very good chance that it will alleviate that condition. So it also causes trouble with breast cysts, cysts in the uterus, and ovaries. So like I said, it causes an enlarged prostate, fibroids, cysts, endometriosis, which is a tissue that's supposed to grow on the inside of the uterus, starts to grow on the outside of the uterus, starts to grow on the ovaries, fallopian tubes, and also sometimes is even found growing in the intestines. So that's what these products cause. PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome, also cysts growing on the ovaries, causes all sorts of problems with menstrual cycle, also causes skin disorders, causes hair growth, female hair growth on the face, also loss of hair on the head for the females. So stay away from this side of things. It's like, if you want problems with your body, just keep consuming commercial dairy. All right, so let's cross over to what we can have. So that's why we don't allow much dairy on our 2-month health program. So what we can have is 100% grass-fed, pasture-raised. These cattle need to be roaming. Sometimes they call it free-range eggs, which means basically the chicken or the animal is allowed out. It doesn't have to even be for very long, and then they're brought back into the pen. So they can call that free range. So what we're looking for is grass-fed, pasture-raised, which means these animals are out, busy, living life the way these animals are supposed to live life. So 100% grass-fed, organic, which means they don't have any of these pesky hormones that are injected into these animals to make them produce more yield. Non-GMO, obviously, so hopefully they are fed feed that, if they are being fed feed that is not of a GMO source, it's of a natural source. So basically we go for full fat pouring cream, very nice in your hot drinks like coffee or tea. It actually sweetens it up nicely. The fun fact is that probably about 50 years ago, the big food industry started removing fat from our diet, saying it was bad for you. And when you remove fat from food, it actually takes the sweetness out of the food, becomes very unpalatable. So you got this low-fat food, which is actually horrible to eat if they don't add sugar. So they add copious amounts of sugar to this fat-free food and to make it taste better. Whereas if they just left the fat in there and left the sugar out of it, man would be a lot healthier, and we wouldn't see the obesity and the diabetes level that we see out there at the moment. So stay away from fat-free or low-fat. That's just a fad, and it's very unhealthy for you. So full-fat pouring cream, zero carb. It makes your coffee really sweet. In actual fact, for me, I've been doing this for 10 years. I really don't like sweet stuff, so I have a very little bit of cream in my coffee. It's just too sweet for me. I don't like sugar. I used to have a very, very serious sweet tooth, in fact. However, now I'm just like, I can taste, if I eat something out there in the world where I haven't actually made it myself or cooked it myself, and I don't have any other way of eating but buying some food somewhere. I obviously look at all the ingredients before I eat something, but sometimes they're very, very clever. They put some kind of code on there that you don't know what it is, and you try and Google it and it doesn't come up. So you eat that, I can immediately taste that there's sugar in something, and they do that. They hide all sorts of stuff in the commercial food out. So we have pouring cream. Doesn't mean you can eat or drink lots and lots of pouring cream. It means you can put some in your coffee in the morning. Butter. So make sure that your butter that you get is also grass-fed, organic, non-GMO. So that means there are certain brands out there that are better than others. And I like the Kerrygold brand. I only buy Kerrygold. There are other brands that are pretty good, but for me, the best one is Kerrygold. It's pasture-raised, grass-fed, non-GMO, and it's actually a very nice tasting. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's not as expensive as hospitalization. So that's a joke. And then ghee, so ghee is high fat. So if you're staying away from carbohydrates and staying away from sugar, you need to be upping your fat. And if you do that, you will become very healthy, in fact. Obviously, there's other things you've got to eat for other kinds of nutrients, but if you can get the carbohydrates and the sugar out of your diet, you're definitely on the way to improving your health. So that's basically the good and the bad. So that's why we restrict dairy on our 2-month program. Obviously, after the 2-month program, we give you a new acceptable food list, which makes it very sustainable, and you can continue on with this health journey after the 2-month program. Kind of consider the 2-month program as a boot camp where it resets the body, and the body gets healthy and it gets over all the damage that's been done over a lifetime of environmental exposure and bad diet and just all the junk that's been put into our food these days. And the body resets itself. You become educated on things like this and other things, so that you can continue the journey and just get healthier and healthier. We do get a lot of weight loss on our program as well, which is actually a symptom of a healthy body. So if you're losing weight because you're starving yourself, that isn't a very good way of going about it, because it actually then does more damage to the body. It's low-calorie diet, so you count your calories in equals calories out. It kind of doesn't work now with new ways of getting the body to burn fat and take in nutrients into the cell, so that the body is as healthy as it could possibly be, digesting your food properly and so on. So we have clients all over the world, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we can help you. We deliver our program currently in English, Afrikaans, which is another South African language, and in Spanish. So we can help the entire Spanish community with our program. So we'd really like to help you. Please contact us and let's get you cracking.